Welcome to the Inspired to be Authentic podcast. I am your host, Matt Lansadell. Inspired to be Authentic is a podcast where we converse with people who are living their most authentic lives. We get real with our guests and talk openly about how they live with courage to be themselves. We explore barriers they have overcome to be more authentic and aligned to themselves and their purpose. Today is episode 11, and we have Donna Edwards with us. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so nice to have you here. So today we're going to be talking about aligning to the truth of who you are. So this is, I always say authenticity is the expression of alignment. So today we're going to break down, what it takes to become aligned. How can we become aligned so we can be our most authentic self? So today we're talking with Donna, and she is a Kundalini Yoga teacher, an angel intuitive, and an event and retreat specialist. So Donna is the founder and owner of Lula May Group, a heart-centered company that offers uniquely authentic retreats, workshops, and events. The intention of each retreat, workshop, and event is to deliver a masterful and authentic experience. Donna is a former business owner as well as a fundraising and event professional with a focus in charities. In conjunction with her fundraising career, Donna has developed positive, loving, and soulful retreats in the mountains. Donna is compassionate and dedicated to helping people with a passion to make a difference in the lives of others. She offers a powerful combination of life experience and professional training. Donna is also an angel intuitive, delivering angel card readings to others in combination with Kundalini Tantric Numerology. These tools are utilized to connect to the divine and communicate messages from the angelic realm, spirit guides, ancestors, and other loving celestial beings. Donna, who is also known as Tej Dhyan Kaur, is a certified Kundalini Yoga teacher and weaves Kundalini Yoga and meditation into all of her retreats, workshops, and events. So amazing to have you on here. So Donna is my Kundalini Yoga teacher. She has been teaching me Kundalini Yoga for about the last year, and it's been extremely transformative in my own life. So we're going to be picking Donna's brain today and finding out all the tools in her toolbox on how we can become aligned to the truth of who we are. So again, welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Why don't we start by maybe just talking a bit about, why don't we talk about your journey to alignment? Like, we all have kind of our origin story of like who we are and how we've kind of shaped ourselves into who we've become. Like, where does your story begin?
Whoa, that's
a loaded question. Yeah.
just to, I'm not that young, so I've lived a few years.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, my alignment to my truth has been in stages of awakening for me, and periods over my life where things have happened to lead me where I am, to evolve to where I am today. And it's probably the last 10 years that I've really had this awareness and this incredible time in my life where I'm connecting all the dots and I'm learning and growing. And, geez, I mean, I'm the only girl out of 7 boys in a family. I was the baby.
Wow.
So
that's a story in itself. The impact that would have on you.
And, I was really loved as a child, and, I knew all my brothers loved me, and I lived in this alcoholic home. And when I was in my younger years, it really didn't even faze me because, my parents were like, wow, we have this girl out of all these boys. And I did have a sister, a few boys up for me, and she passed away at crib death. And then, so when I arrived, it was, this magical thing. And, but when I was about 7, we lived in this small town, and my mom and dad divorced, and it completely destroyed our family. And we moved to this big city. My brothers, they didn't like my stepfather, because at this time I had a new stepfather in my life who was an alcoholic and very physically abusive to my mom. And so these years of growing up were incredibly traumatic for me. And my brothers, you know, didn't want to be around the chaos, and so eventually they moved on and moved out. And so I was very isolated and I felt very alone. And my mother, she was a warrior, but she couldn't be there for me, you know. And actually Lula May Group, Lula May is my mother's name. And so I named my company. When I was deciding what name to name my company, it was just, I had to name it Lula May after my mom, because she was courageous and strong and really a beautiful warrior. So
That's beautiful.
And so right from the get-go, I was overwhelmed with the loss of love. And of course, with addiction comes a whole whack of shame. And that's where I started my shame journey. My safe world transformed and was replaced with this darkness. And so we lived in this city for a while. And then when I went into high school, we moved to a farm, which was more isolating than ever. And I felt imprisoned. That's what I felt like. And I had no control over anything. My world was not in my control. I was told what to do, when to do it, you know, and it was very challenging. Everything was planned for me. And I didn't have any opportunity to, you know, work on who I was and even have fun and joy. And it was difficult. It was a difficult period in my life. And when I was in my teens, I lost one of my brothers, who was like this most incredible human, who committed suicide. And it was really traumatic for not only me, but for my whole family. And at that period of time, you know, there was no assistance. We were isolated on this farm, and how do you deal with that? You know, this was my brother he was the happy one of the family. No matter who he came in touch with, he filled them up and saw your beauty and ignited this magic with them, where you felt so amazing to be around him. And so it was difficult and didn't know how to process. And, you know, so eventually I started to rebel. I started, you know, smoking weed. I started drinking, you know, and trying to fit in, you know, somewhere. I felt I didn't belong anywhere, but I tried to fit in, and I did that to try and fit in and escape from this reality that I was living. And I was so lost and empty. And so, and then in high school, I met my current husband. We've been married for it'll be 38 years this year. Wow, like crazy.
That's amazing. Oh,
And
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, he's this incredible soul. And he was exactly who I was meant to be, what I needed in my life. And in our early years of courting and many years after, I tried to push him away, you know, but he was relentless. And, you know, his love broke every barrier that I put up and every wall that I put up. And so it's been a lot of years of trust and lowering my defenses and opening up to being vulnerable. And so that his love could really reached the broken pieces of my spirit. And so that's kind of was my journey. You know, I had a daughter when I was 18 years old, very young to have a child. And then, you know, things happened in my life. My daughter, when she was 15, started to get into drugs and alcohol. And, you know, I went in and out of it. And, but when she was 15, she started to get into drugs and alcohol. And it was like everything that I didn't want my daughter or child to become, they became. And, it was a very difficult period. So we went into a treatment center with her. It was a long-term treatment center, and she was able to get the help that she needed. And in doing so, I was able to get the help I needed. Our whole family was able to get the help that we needed. And that's kind of where I began my healing journey, is looking at myself, everything around addiction. And, you know, after that, I started, you know, working in the treatment center that we were in. I started working as, and I had a successful career, and I felt I was living my purpose. I believed in the program. My daughter was sober, and our lives had changed dramatically. And so, but, you know, where I worked, it was a toxic environment. And I worked there for over 16 years. And, you know, I was able to be creative. I was the director of development. I created live events and, you know, met with stakeholders and all those things, and raised money for the organization. And I was able to experience a creative side to me. And that was, it was great. It was great, but it was emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, it was draining. Many times, and I look back and I think, wow, many times I chose to show up for my career instead of my family. And that certainly wasn't healthy for anybody. And so, and this led to a whole bunch of stress. And then by the time, you know, I was in my 16th year of working there, things started to fall apart for me. My health started to deteriorate. The organization, the people started changing, and it wasn't aligned with me anymore. And I couldn't figure it out. And, you know, for the longest time, I allowed the outside world to control my life. You know, how I looked, how I felt. I wanted acceptance for others, and I had no control over my life or my circumstances. And I felt like, as much as I was successful in what I was doing, I felt like this big loser. And I felt like I couldn't change things, you know, that things couldn't be any different. And then, you know, I was pretty much forced to make a change. And I remember, this woman is the most incredible woman and made a difference in my life, because my boss, he brought me in and you know, said, you know, Donna, I don't know that you're, you know, capable of what you're doing in this role, and on and long story. But so he brought in this business coach for me, and I was like, what do I need a business coach for, right? And it was this incredible lady who came at the right time in my life. And she, you know, believed in me. She saw the value of who I was. And, but not only the value of my work, but the value of me, Donna. And really, she was the first person that, you know, saw that in me and, expressed it to me. And she helped me draw on courage to stand in my own power. And my career was great, but it almost destroyed me. And this beautiful woman came in and she assisted me to move in forward in a different direction. And it kind of backfired on my boss because she did this whole analysis of me. And it came back that I was more than capable of that job. And so yeah, that was a really great experience to have in terms of wow, you know what, I am okay. And so yeah, she was a beautiful angel. And yeah, that was amazing. And this, at this time too, I started to connect with different spiritual teachers that they were just brought into my life. I started attending conferences, and I would attend with one of my girlfriends who actually worked at the same organization that I did, and she was having the same issues. So so we, went on a few conferences together, the Louise Hay, I Can Do It conferences, and different ones around the world we went to. And it was amazing. And it opened up a whole new world for me. And another thing that I did that I just want to mention quickly is that myself and two other girlfriends who both, dealt with addiction and all of that, we met on a monthly basis, and we decided to write our life stories. And this was an incredible, empowering experience for me because, first of all, I was safe. These people didn't judge me, and I could be who I was. And I shared absolutely everything that happened in my past, and all the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that sort of stuff, in this safe, non-judgmental environment. And they did the same. And we took our lives in decades, and we would write our story out and then meet with one another and then share them together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it was an amazing process. We had amazing epiphanies on our life and what we went through. And I know you talk a lot about shame, and that shame started to slowly lift when I was expressing my life, and all the things fell into pieces of why I did the things I did, why I reacted to things the way I did. And yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, it was great. So that was that. And then, at this point when I left the organization from working, and I went to many doctors. They diagnosed me with many different things, and said I was under this complete amount of stress, and I couldn't function. Like they told me I wasn't allowed to exercise. I wasn't allowed to, I was just to take it easy and to relax. I was getting injected with, all sorts of different things to try and build my immune system and build me up, and nothing was working. And there was no solution for me. Nothing got better. And I remember sitting with my dogs. I have two beautiful French bulldogs, and I remember they're the loves of my life and got me through a lot of dark times for sure. But I remember sitting with them and just at my lowest point, defeated, crying my eyes out, saying, this isn't right. And then I had this voice come to me that said, you need to move your body. You're not going to get better if you don't move your body. And I was like, oh, okay. and I mean, I've had connections, with the angelic realm. And as you had mentioned earlier, I do. And that's a whole nother story. But for some reason, I just followed this direction. And I remembered a lady her daughter went through the program. She was a Kundalini yoga teacher. And she had introduced it to me years before, and I was like, oh, I'm just too busy. I can't do that. And so what had happened was I called her and I said, hey, are you still teaching that, yoga? She goes, yes, I am. And I said, oh, well, I'd like to try a class. And so I tried a class, and it was very different. Kundalini yoga, for those that don't know, it's a very different practice.
Yeah.
And
it's weird, and that's why I love it.
I don't know, but it's something drew me to it. And I can't even pinpoint, the first time that I did it, what drew me to it.
Yeah.
Just something, it kept coming to me. So I started, coming more often, and I just decided that I was going to take the opportunity. I was going to buy myself a year membership, and I was just going to go for it. I was going to practice this. It didn't take a toll physically on my body. One of the great things about Kundalini yoga, anybody can do it, and you do it at your own pace. And so I did what I could. I showed up, and I made that commitment to myself that this was going to be my self-care. And for once in my life, I was going to do something to take care of me, and not even knowing what would happen, just that I was doing something good for me. And then it's history. Really. I mean, I created, Lula May Group around this same time. And I started doing retreats in the mountains, co-hosting retreats in the mountains, and incorporating, the angelic realm. And I learned how to connect to the angelic realm in ways that are just, it's my life today. And
what does that look like for you, that connecting to the angelic realm? Because I think some people that might be listening, they may not understand what that means. What does that look like?
It's like, whoa, what's going on? Cuckoo, yeah. Right? Yeah. Really. So for me, I bought my first set of cards, of angel deck cards. My girlfriend introduced me to angel cards, and she said, oh yeah, I use these. It was at a critical point in my life too. I was on a trip with her. She had a home in Hawaii. So I went with her, and I had this great opportunity to be, on the beach. And I bought this deck of angel cards. And she's just try it. And she showed me a little bit how to use them and connect with the energy. And I kept doing these readings and following what the cards were saying. And then I would get these messages come to me. Like, I can't even explain it, Matt. I would hear, feel, or know these messages coming to me, or I'd have dreams, or I'd see visions, and everything the messages were giving me were totally aligned with what I was going through.
Yeah.
And so what I've come to know is that anybody can connect with this angelic realm. And how I was introduced to it and how I do it now is through angel card decks. So, it's pulling information and giving myself information as well, doing other readings for other people. I connect with my angels connect with their angels, and through the cards and through messages that I hear, see, feel, or know, I relay message to them in the now energy. So things that are happening in their life now, it's not like I'm a psychic, or I tell you what's going to happen in your future. It's about living in today. This is what's happening. This is the action you can take. And if you take that action, this is going to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I'm the exact same.
Yeah. So anybody can do this. And this is just one avenue, and I co-create my life today with Source and the angelic team. That's my life, really. Yeah. And then when I began to incorporate Kundalini yoga, it just magnified everything.
Yeah.
Everything was magnified. And and that's kind of what happened. I then took my teacher, practiced Kundalini for a full year and a bit, and was truly committed, and my life completely changed. My body changed, my mind changed, how I did things, how I approach things in life changed. And really the most important thing is we talk about Kundalini in Kundalini Yoga, are we connecting to our Satnam. Our truth is our identity. And that happened for me. And I have this relationship with myself that I can't even explain, that it is just so incredible. And it's through the practice of Kundalini Yoga that has instilled all of this in me. And I know my truth. And I mean, I'm always evolving and changing and shifting and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not in that, you know, cloaked with sadness and shame, you know, and in that perfectionism where, oh, wow, you know, I'm going to make sure I control everything, absolutely everything, try to control myself and everybody outside of me. And so that didn't work so well, but this works for me. And it's a beautiful process, and I'm so grateful.
You know, our story is so similar. It's unbelievable. I got emotional when you were talking about 3 separate times, because I'm so connected to your story, because I have a story very similar. And growing up in the experiences of feeling alone in my experience, and growing up feeling shame about who I am, and growing up in perfectionism and all of these things, we have very similar flavors to our story. And I know the day I walked into your yoga class, I looked at you and you looked so familiar to me that I swear that I've known you. And it only took a few classes for you to come up and ask me for a hug. And I was like, that's just so something that, you know, I would do. And it felt so good to hug somebody like you. And you know, it's such a cool thing. And what I want to talk about out of your story is, how did you heal the shame? I've told my story several times. I know the listeners have heard my story around shame and how I've moved from shame into my Satnam, right? Because I really do think that shame is one of the biggest barriers to us finding our Satnam, which is the truth of our identity. So how did you do that? What was that like for you?
That's a great question. And you know, in Kundalini Yoga, we're taught to be in that present moment awareness. And when I'm in that present moment awareness, I am just in that moment where I have this ability to go within, right? And to decipher what's truth and what's not, what's true for me, what's not true for me. The fact that I was able to transform my life from this failure of a person that I thought I was, to actually feel good about who I was. I don't even know if I can explain it, Matt. The process of, you know, moving my body, moving with Kundalini Yoga, chanting mantras. You know, Kundalini Yoga is all about, you do a set of postures or meditation or breath work to make a change. The effects make a change in your body. And it's all about self-awareness, right? And you're awakening the soul. And just by doing the practice, I was able to transform myself, cultivating that inner truth for who I was to my highest self. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I don't even know if I can pinpoint acknowledging, you know, everything in my life that brought me shame, you know, addiction and living in an alcoholic home, you know, where family's fighting and the neighbors can hear and all that sort of stuff. And just being so lost with not knowing who I was, you know, having that shame build up about I don't have any value, I don't have any worth, because I didn't even know how to do that. You know,
Yeah.
I was so isolated, I didn't know how to do that. And ultimately always just coming back to my truth, you know, and going within in that present moment.
You talk about being a failure and how that was a contributor to your shame. What in your experience, or what in your view of yourself, made you feel like a failure?
I always felt different than other people. And I always felt that I couldn't be like others. These people on the outside of me looked like they had it all together. They were creative, they were fun, they were all of these things. And I could never measure up to that. So I always compared myself to the outside world, to people around me that were doing great, successful things. And it was so deep that I couldn't, even when I did great things, I was very successful at my career. And even when I did great things, I would slough it off, you know? And I would compare the outside, everything was about the outside world. You know, I was not in charge of my circumstances. I was not in charge of my life, you know? So, yeah.
That's been my experience with perfectionism.
Yes.
It's all about measuring up or not measuring up, all about comparing yourself, all about manipulating your outer world to create the image of having it all together. So my shame became about how can I control other people's view of who I am? Because I didn't feel good. I didn't accept myself. I didn't love who I was. So how could I make other people appear to see what I want them to see about myself? That's what it became. And that's how I quickly lost myself. And that's how I you know, misaligned to the truth of who I was. And it wasn't until I returned back to the present moment, like you spoke of, where I got out of my mind and into my heart, where I could really, truly feel into the truth of who I was.
Yeah, perfectionism, it blocked me, right? It was my protection, right? Perfectionism was my protection, and it blocked me from taking risks or exploring who Donna was outside of the box, from living this full life. And I always wanted to prove the value of who I was. And I was always fearful of what others thought of me, you know, and all that comparison. I was so harsh on myself, and I felt this like worthless being. And I expected everybody else to make me better, make my life better. My mom, my dad, my husband, my boss, all these people, like, come on, you know? And I had no recognition of who I was. And I felt trapped and trapped by my outside circumstances. I felt I didn't have any power to be who I wanted to be. I looked for someone always to help me, to save me. And even when they did love me or give me any attention, I didn't know how to handle it, you know? And you know, it's such a reflection of my childhood, because I had no control as a child. So I incorporated this way of living where I was going to be in control of everything, right?
Yeah, I know that one all too well.
And, you know, I just, you know, I've done some incredible work with my teachers in Kundalini Yoga. And, you know, you take teacher training and you become a teacher and you learn all of this and you experience, it's all about the experience, right? I can't teach anything in Kundalini Yoga unless I've experienced it for myself. And you go on and you can, they offer these level 2 courses. You can take 5 different modules. And I've taken a couple of them. And one of them in particular was really has really shifted and changed me in a lot of different ways. And it was all about stress and vitality and what stress does to our body and our mind and all of who we are. And the meditation was a meditation to heal past trauma. And this, not only did the course, I mean, you know, identified how stress from the moment my parents got divorced and my whole life changed, how I handled stress at different periods in my life was all really the same from that initial childhood trauma. And I did this meditation, and it was the meditation to release childhood trauma. And it was a very simple thing. And I did it for 90 days straight. And it was, you know, sitting your left hand's over your heart, and you take your index finger and you chant Sata Nama, right? And you hit different points on your face. I can't remember how to do that. I have to think about it. It's been a while since I did it. But chanting Sata Nama, hitting different points on my face, and I remember I would wake up and I would have memories of my childhood, but they weren't the trauma memories. They were the good memories. And something was, over time, was changing me to see the beauty of my childhood, the beauty of why I did the things I did. And that was okay. I came to this place of acceptance for how I handled things in my life. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in Kundalini Yoga, yes, you move, you do asanas, you do postures, and all of that is, you know, works. It's a science of the mind and body, right? And so with different mudras or pressing different areas, wherever that is, even holding your hand in Gyan Mudra, which we call Gyan Mudra, with your thumb and index finger, you're creating an effect by doing this. And then you add in mantra and you chant mantra, and that's even more incredible. You know, it's called the Shabad, and when we chant a mantra, and it dissolves the part of the ego which obstructs the truth and prevents us from perceiving and acting from our authentic self. And it cleans and clears out our subconscious. And sometimes you don't even know what it's doing. You know, I know you must have experienced some classes where you've chanted, you know, a certain mantra, and then something has shifted in you that you're like, whoa, what was that? Right? And so even the way we breathe, you know, breathing techniques, and it's a wonderful way to make peace with ourselves. And breathing, you know, you can do a calming or an energizing breath that opens the door to the path of this awakening, you know, within you. So yeah, a lot of different things. You know, I recall, you know, going to my doctor and telling, and you know, and saying to her, you know, maybe I should try yoga. And she said, no, Donna, no, don't try yoga. Where you are, you need to just be still. And then I went to her a year after I started doing yoga for my checkup. And she goes, I'm not sure what you're doing. And I said, oh, she goes, yeah. And she showed me I was at the bottom of the health chart and I was at the top that day. She showed me. And I told her, well, I've been doing yoga. You know, the thing that you told me that I
Not to
should be
do, yeah.
doing. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just a remarkable practice.
Yeah, I've had the same experience with it. I love it. You mentioned the ego. I'm curious about, you know, you said that the ego is the part of us that prevents us from connecting with our authentic self. What is the ego to you? Like how has it been something that's been affected your life?
Well, when I act from my ego, I'm not acting from my true self. There's a healthy part of my ego that we all have we can have a healthy part of our ego where it protects us and all of that. However, for me, I think it's like, you know, it's the acronym for edging God out, the ego, and it's not following my truth. And it's looking to the outside. It's not looking within. And hard for me sometimes to see my inner truth if I'm acting from my ego. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that as articulately as I can.
What part of us are we connecting to when we connect to our ego? Maybe that's a different way to approach it so the audience can understand what the ego is.
Well, I don't even know how to answer that question, Matt. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I don't know how to articulate it.
So if the ego isn't our authentic self, is it our false self?
Yeah, because it's from the outside, right? Mm-hmm. You're more concerned about what's on the outside than on the inside. Mm-hmm. And so you act from things from outside of you rather than within you.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, I define some of this work I'm doing with authenticity around what keeps us from being authentic is this, mm-hmm. this imaginary audience that we're always performing in front of in our life. We make decisions based off of what the audience is going to think. We talk based off of how the audience is going to feel, you know, so it becomes about the other, right? Ego has a high emphasis on other, and mm-hmm. authentic self has obviously a high emphasis on self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I know when my ego's talking to me, when it's negative, when it's that's not the healthy part of my ego, right? That's making me fearful. That's making me want to feel, you know, angry or stressed, or that part of my ego does not serve my highest purpose.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that negative aspect of the ego does not serve my purpose. So why am I going to do that? Why am I going to go there?
Yeah.
And it comes up, obviously, right? My ego can be very strong and loud.
Yeah.
And I have to find a way to silence that because it doesn't serve my purpose.
What would you say the biggest need that your ego has? What is it always trying to provide for you or protect you from, would you say?
I think it squashes who I am. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It puts the thumb is representative of the ego.
Yeah.
And I think of it as pushing me down, right? Pushing me away and telling me, no, you can't do that. You're not good enough for that. Are you crazy? You can't think those big dreams. You can't, you know, you're not capable of doing all of that. So it's like it squashes my truth of who I am.
Yeah.
Right. So that I cannot, you know, act and be from my authentic self.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think what ends up happening, I think people might see the ego as conceited and people that are being superior, thinking they're superior to others. And I think what ends up happening with our ego is it becomes the thumb, and it's pushing us down, pushing us down. And then we end up developing this mechanism of the ego, which becomes, it could be superiority, it can become perfectionism, it can become whatever, as a way to try and protect us from having to experience the feeling of being a failure or being worthless or whatever that might be. So it can actually become a protective factor, but it can also be an aspect of us that tears us down. Do you have that same experience?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it wants to, you know, when I take the time to silence that ego, my whole world changes. And so, I wanna go back to the old ways of my way of doing it. It takes me back. Ego takes me back to the old ways of Donna,
Yeah,
right?
me too.
and so it's a really deep practice of getting back and removing that, because we store those traumas, all those things in our bodies, in our minds, in our psyches, in our subconscious. You know, so it wants to take me back there and remember when, Donna, you couldn't do, or, you know, you're not good enough. You know, it takes me back there. And yeah, I mean, wow. And then, you know, then where am I when that happens? I'm back to my knees, and, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think the ego lives in the mind, and I think the authentic self lives in the heart. And I think my journey from head to heart through present moment awareness has been the most profound experience for me. And that's what yoga has helped me with. That's what your classes have helped me with. That's what meditation has helped me with. It's been, how can I ground myself in my heart and spend less time in the activity of my mind? And that's been how I've removed myself from ego and stepped into more of an authentic version of myself. Single-handedly, it's been the most impact for me. And I think second to that would probably be vulnerability. It's been my superpower, you know, and how I've healed my shame. And what's your relationship with vulnerability been like?
Well, at times it can be scary, right? To be vulnerable. You know, I'm going to be judged by whatever, and people are going to really see me for who I truly am. And it's a risk to be vulnerable.
Yeah,
right?
sure is.
And so I try and set the stage somewhat about who I'm vulnerable with, right? Because people can only meet you where you're at. And some people don't have that comprehension. So why would I expose myself? On the other hand, in terms of, you know, someone coming to me and saying, I need help with this, or what can I do? I'm guided to be vulnerable at that moment, because in my vulnerability, I'm able to help someone else. And it's real. It's real. People know it's real. And then it gives them permission to be vulnerable back, right? And it's amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we do that connect to who we are. If we don't share it, though, right? We need to be able to share it in order to you know, stay connected to that truth as well. It's not all just going within. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think the perfect example is you shared it with this writing down the stories of the decades that have happened in your life and sharing it with, because shame lives in secrecy, right? The opposite of shame is vulnerability. And I think when we learn to tell our stories with courage, that's when shame dispels. That's when it releases.
Right. And I mean, hey, I have had issues with addiction. That's vulnerable for me.
Yeah.
And even stepping into, I do this crazy Kundalini thing. I wear a turban on my head. I wear all white. I do these, you know, things that some people don't understand. I do all these. That's vulnerable for me, right? And you know, I connect with the angels, you know, and all that sort of stuff. That's vulnerable for me to express that. But you're right. It does. That vulnerability does erase that shame, and I even get stronger in my truth when that happens, right? Just like you're saying, you get stronger in your truth.
Yeah, and I think a big component of shame, well, I really truly believe that shame can't exist without conformity. When we feel like there's a norm and we have to stay within that norm, when we don't feel that we fit in that norm, we experience shame, right? So if you take conformity out of the equation, and we no longer feel we have to conform, and we can embrace who we are in all aspects, in the differences of who we are, shame dissolves, right? So it's this idea that we have to play this certain role in order to be accepted by the people around us. But really, the truth is that we have to accept ourselves, and then it doesn't matter what's happening in the peripherals, because we already are doing the work that we expect everyone else to do for us, which is to accept us, right? And has
Very well said. Yeah.
Has that been a part of your journey? Is this self-acceptance, and you know, how have you done that?
Well, through meditation and going within and connecting to source, and you know, having a committed daily practice and devotion is a reminder for me all the time, right? This is my like, you know, reiterating what my purpose is, you know, living in the present moment, doing the best that I can do today. You know, today is all I've got. You know, I don't need to live in the past or the future. I can just be in this present moment. And having not only my practice of meditation and devotion, but a practice of gratitude, bringing it all back to gratitude. And you know, I wanted to add about the heart, and we're taught in the chakras that our heart is our balance point between our earthly realms, the lower chakras, and our upper realms of the heavens. And if your heart chakra isn't intact or is off, you know, it's hard to reach those other areas where you're gonna be able to have this incredible impact in your life and change. And so I remember the first time I kept crying in the early stages of coming to Kundalini Yoga, and I'd cry after the class, and I didn't know what was happening. And it was
Me too. Seriously.
It's like, what's going on with me, man? Like, what is going on with you? And I remember one of the teachers telling me that it was my heart connecting to the nectar and the devotion of God, or our Creator.
Yeah.
And it was really connecting to my heart, and it was just like, wow, well, you know, and you feel and sense this incredible love that is just beyond you, you know, hard to articulate that. And when your heart is closed, you alienate self from people, right? You don't get connected. You follow others' ideas and others' ideals, and you have this lack of self-esteem and self-worth, and but when your heart chakra is open and you have this compassion and empathy and love for others that is beyond, you're doing what you love. You have this self-love and self-confidence, which allows you to have that love and compassion for others, which I absolutely love, which is the reason why I teach Kundalini Yoga.
Yeah.
Because if you know all my classes, there's always something related to the heart.
Yeah.
And, the most, I think I read this in one of my classes, that the most effective protection is to shine your own truth. I have it here. I can read it to you.
Sure, I love that.
Our most effective protection is to shine our own truth and who we are so intensely that all negativity is repelled and only the light of love enters to nourish our core. Our most powerful communication is to radiate the light of our soul so brightly that everyone feels loved in our presence. And it's just such a beautiful way of expressing that love and awakening, and when I'm connected to my heart, I always remember who I am. I remember what my purpose is. Why am I here?
Yeah.
All of that. Living my dharma,
Yeah.
action aligned with my infinite self, my dharma, living my dharma.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to take a moment and I want to share a bit of a testimonial on working with you and what sort of impact that's had for me, because I think it's important for the viewer to understand it. And I think you talked about your heart opening, and it's almost like there's a clearing that's taking place. And I had that exact experience in your classes, where what it felt like was your classes allowed me to open up space inside of myself. And I think for many years, I've struggled with a crack addiction. I struggled with hiding being gay. I struggled with my parents getting divorced. I've had quite a few significant traumatic things that have happened in my life. And what that has done is it taught me how to repress. I experienced things very intensely, and I felt things very intensely as a child. And I developed layers of feelings inside of me from not allowing myself to experience them because they were too intense. And what your yoga classes has really helped me with is peeling back the layers of my inner onion, I call it. And it's allowed me to create the space to be able to experience the love and the heart-centered energy that I need to experience, because I wasn't able to access that because there was so much layers of repressed feelings that, and I really believe I had 3 separate yoga classes where I cried in the yoga class. And one of them was yours, and then 2 other yoga classes. And I also cried several times after yoga classes. And I really believe that's what was happening, is I was peeling back these layers so I could start to radiate the light and the love of who I am and step into my truth. So my testimonial for you is that your classes have helped me align to who I am and the truth of who I am. And that's why I wanted to talk about that today, because the Kundalini Yoga has been a very, very pivotal, part of my journey. And it's so cool to have somebody like you be able to walk me through that and lead me back to the truth of who I am. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for that.
No, you're welcome. I mean, it's all the practice, right? I'm just the instrument. And, I knew from the moment that you walked in my class, I'm like, whoa, who's this radiant being? And you're right. I felt the same way. I had this connection and I couldn't pinpoint what it was, and it didn't matter. I just was like, I'm connected to this person in some way or another. And the honor of being able to witness you, as you were doing the practice, you completely embraced the practice. Not everybody does that, but you completely embraced it, letting go. And you could just feel the vibration, the radiance off of you. And it was exhilarating. You were this beautiful, beautiful being that walked into my class. And it was just really incredible to watch the shifts and changes in igniting that beautiful being that you are. So yeah, I'm grateful that you came to my classes. I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to connect and meet, and yeah, it's been amazing. So yeah.
One of the blessings of COVID, I'm actually trying to find like what are the benefits and the being grateful for having this has been you. It's been so cool because I missed your classes so much. And then when COVID came, I've been able to do Donna's classes every Tuesday morning at 7 Mountain Time. So if you guys are interested in wanting to do her class and check out what Kundalini Yoga is about, Tuesday mornings at 7 p.m. or sorry, Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Mountain Time is when she runs her class. So definitely I would strongly encourage you to check that out.
Yes.
And she's offering it for free, right? Like that's such a beautiful, beautiful gift that you're giving the world. So I do want to be obviously mindful of your time, but there's a few fun things that I like to do in these interviews. And one of them is, how much of me can I be? So I love this question because it gives us an opportunity to really embrace who we are and share that with the world through vulnerability. So a list of questions that I've come up with, and it's an opportunity for you to choose a question between 1 and 31 that you practice.
1 and 31. How about 4?
4, that's my favorite number.
Oh.
Ooh, this is a good one. What is the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you?
Oh dear. You're asking
not to make you relive it or anything.
You're inviting me to be vulnerable, Matt.
Yeah. Share at the depth you want. I always tell the guests that.
Okay, well, this is one of my most embarrassing moments. Is we were with our family in Hawaii.
Okay.
And I hate the water, right? But anyways, I mean, I almost drowned twice in my life. Wow. We were going on an excursion, and we were gonna swim with the turtles. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll just, So we go and we park the catamaran or whatever, and everybody gets out of the boat, and it's my turn, and my husband's still on the boat, and he's like, come on, Donna, you can do it. Yeah, I have faith in you. You can do this. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. So I have one of those, dinghies around me, right? So I jump in the water, and I'm just so excited because I'm doing this, right? And so I'm up, on the level of the water. I'm like, look, yay, I did it. And Jerry's going like, Donna, look down, Donna. God. And I'm not paying attention. And he's like, Donna, and everyone's looking at me that we're still on the boat. And I'm like, I look down, and my bathing suit, because of this dinghy, and when I went in the water, came right down, and I'm in the water. My girls are right out there, and I'm like, I'm so happy.
That's hilarious.
Anyways, that's my one of my most embarrassing moments.
That's too good. Yeah. I think the same thing happened to my mom. She told me the story when I was younger, that she was on a water slide, I think maybe at West Edmonton Mall or something, and came sliding down, and her bikini top came off and had no idea.
Yeah. Well,
too funny.
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah.
So I always like to leave the interview with a tip of the week. So this is me tip of the week. And basically this is me as we're holding a container for self-ownership. This is who I am, being proud of who I am. And it's all about alignment, right? When we're aligned to who we are, where we feel like we can be more authentic and we can be more in ownership of who we are. So what's one tip that's helped you in your life own who you are and be the best version of Donna that she can be, that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, that's a big question.
Mm-hmm. Take your time. There's no rush.
I guess I'm the only one that can create my life. And I'm going to take it back to opening up the heart chakra. And my tip would be to connect to that beautiful heart chakra, because it'll open the doors to the earth and the heavens. And that's where the magic happens, in connecting to our true Satnam, to living from your true identity, and the place of knowing your truth, your identity, and remembering your worth and your value so that you can embrace life.
Yeah, I like that. It's a beautiful sharing. And that can all be done in her online class. So come join
That's
me.
Right.
Come join me. Come check it out and bring an open mind and an open heart, and it'll be a beautiful experience. And you're also offering angel card readings. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit more about that and how they can connect to you that way?
Sure. They can connect to me either, through social media, or like Facebook or Instagram, or go on my website and send me a message. I can provide details of setting up a card reading and getting some messages with your angels. And yeah, it's a beautiful experience. I do in person. Well, I haven't been able to do in-person readings, but I can do them online through Zoom, or just over the phone, or whatever works. And some people think that that's really, that you can connect that way, and actually it's a pretty remarkable experience. And it doesn't matter where I am, or how I'm doing it. I connect to your energy and go from there, right? So so that's how you can get a hold of me.
Great. And your website is lulamaygroup.com. So LULAMAY group.com. And,
that's right.
Donna Edwards on Facebook. I'll attach these all in the show notes so people can find a way to get a hold of you through the show notes as well.
Sure. And do you want me, I just want to add, do you want me to send you the meditation to heal from past trauma? If anybody wants to.
Please send me the link, and I'll put that in the
Yes.
show notes, because I think that a lot of people would have an interest in that for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll put the link to, well, I think if they add you as a friend on Facebook, they'll see your online classes pop up when you go live.
For sure.
For people that don't want to add someone as a friend, you can always go on my page, and a couple posts down, you'll see Donna's post. I share her lives in the mornings as well when I take the class. So
for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Right. Again, I really want to thank you for sharing your story, for showing up in the truth of who you are. It just feels so good to hear you talk and share your story, because we have that kismet connection, that beautiful connection, and it's so nice to see you living your truth, because it allows me to step into more truth of who I am, and we need more people like you doing the work you're doing. So thank you so much for everything that you do and bringing your light into this world.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for this amazing platform. And you just, you shine your light and help others to shine theirs, and it's just really incredible that you were offering this platform for people to share their truth and who they are. So thank you, from the bottom of my heart. And keep going, keep shining that beautiful light and into this world. A lot of people need this right now, for sure.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
and I'm grateful that you're a part of my life. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm grateful as well. I'll be home mid-June, so I'm looking forward. Hopefully, yoga classes will start opening up. But once I'm done my quarantine, maybe we can meet and have a hug and
That'd be awesome. I
a
would love
social
that.
distance hug. I don't know. We'll have to.
No, sorry.
I'll be
Not social
quarantined, so I'll be good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
Cool.
would love that. Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
And everybody have a beautiful day. Thanks for tuning in, and looking forward to the next episode. Take care.
yeah, thanks everyone. Sat Nam.
Sat Nam.